The morning sun cast long shadows across Kensington Palace as Catherine, Princess of Wales, carefully sorted through the contents of an old mahogany chest that had been discovered in the palace's storage rooms. The chest had been forgotten for decades, tucked away behind stacks of historical documents and royal memorabilia that nobody had bothered to examine in years. Catherine's fingers trembled slightly as she lifted a familiar blue velvet jewelry box from the depths of the chest. Her heart raced as she recognized the distinctive sapphire and diamond engagement ring that once belonged to Princess Diana. But this wasn't the ring that William had given her. This was something else entirely. As she opened more boxes, her breath caught in her throat. Before her lay an incredible collection of jewelry that had belonged to Diana, pieces that the royal family believed had been lost forever. There were sapphire earrings that sparkled like captured starlight, a pearl necklace with a clasp shaped like a heart, and several bracelets that Diana had worn to countless royal events. Each piece carried memories of the beloved princess who had captured the world's heart. Catherine had heard stories about these particular pieces from William, who had often spoken about his mother's favorite jewelry that seemed to have vanished after her death. The discovery sent shockwaves through the palace staff. Margaret, the head housekeeper who had served the royal family for over 30 years, was called to examine the find. Her weathered hands shook as she identified each piece, remembering how radiant Diana had looked wearing them. The jewelry had been missing since 1997, and many had assumed it had been quietly sold or given away to charity, as was common practice with royal belongings. William was in his private study when Catherine rushed to find him, the jewelry box clutched tightly in her hands. The moment he saw his mother's sapphire earrings, his composure cracked. These weren't just any pieces of jewelry. They were the ones Diana had worn on his 10th birthday, the ones she had promised would one day belong to his future wife. He had searched for them after Catherine accepted his proposal, wanting to honor his mother's memory by giving them to the woman he loved. The emotional reunion with his mother's lost treasures brought back a flood of memories. William remembered Diana clasping the pearl necklace around her neck before attending a charity gala, how she would let him touch the smooth pearls when he was young and scared during thunderstorms. He recalled her wearing the sapphire bracelet to his school sports day, how proud she had looked cheering from the sidelines. Each piece told a story of a mother's love that had been thought lost forever. As word of the discovery spread through the palace, it quickly reached other members of the royal family. Charles, now king, was informed by his private secretary during his morning briefing. The news stirred complex emotions in the monarch, who had spent years trying to move forward from the painful memories surrounding Diana's death while ensuring her legacy lived on for their sons. Camilla was taking her afternoon tea in the garden room when one of her ladies-in-waiting whispered the news in her ear. The queen consort's teacup paused halfway to her lips, and for a moment, her carefully maintained composure faltered. She had spent years establishing her place in the royal family, and the sudden reappearance of Diana's most precious jewelry felt like a ghost from the past had suddenly materialized in the present. The timing couldn't have been more significant. The royal family was preparing for several important events, including a state dinner and Catherine's upcoming patronage announcements. The discovery of Diana's jewelry added an unexpected emotional weight to an already busy period. Palace staff whispered among themselves about what the find might mean for the family dynamics, especially given the delicate balance that had been maintained over the years. Catherine found herself drawn back to the jewelry collection throughout the day. She understood the profound significance of these pieces, not just as valuable royal heirlooms, but as tangible connections to the mother-in-law she had never met but whose shadow had influenced so much of her royal journey. She thought about Diana's sons and how much these recovered treasures would mean to both William and Harry. Despite the complicated circumstances surrounding the royal family's current relationships, the palace's head of security was immediately called to assess how the jewelry had remained hidden for so long and to ensure its safety now that it had been found. Initial investigations suggested that the chest had been moved during renovations years ago and simply forgotten in the vast storage areas of the palace. The discovery raised questions about what other lost royal treasures might be hidden in the palace's many forgotten corners. As evening approached, William sat alone in his study, holding his mother's pearl necklace and remembering her gentle voice. He thought about how she would have loved Catherine, how she would have been the most devoted grandmother to George, Charlotte, and Louis. The jewelry's return felt like a sign, a reminder that Diana's love and influence continued to touch their lives in unexpected ways. The news remained within the palace walls for now, but everyone understood that such a significant discovery couldn't stay secret for long. The royal press office began preparing statements while trying to determine the best way to handle the public announcement. They knew that anything related to Diana would generate enormous public interest, and they wanted to ensure the story was told with the dignity and respect that her memory deserved. Catherine carefully returned each piece to its velvet-lined box, knowing that tomorrow would bring difficult decisions about what to do with this unexpected treasure. The jewelry belonged to William and Harry by right, but the complex family dynamics meant that any decision would need to be handled with extraordinary care and sensitivity. As the palace settled into evening quiet, the recovered jewelry lay safely in the royal vault, waiting for decisions that would affect not just the immediate family, but potentially the entire institution of the monarchy. The lost jewels of Diana had returned at a time when the royal family was still healing from recent divisions, and their reappearance promised to stir emotions and memories that many had thought were finally at peace. The following morning brought an unexpected visitor to Kensington Palace. Harry had flown in from California overnight after William's emotional phone call about the discovered jewelry. The brothers hadn't spoken privately in months, but the significance of their mother's recovered treasures transcended their recent disagreements. Harry's face was etched with a mixture of hope and pain as he was escorted through the familiar corridors of his childhood home. William waited in the blue drawing room, the same room where they had received visitors after their mother's funeral. The jewelry collection was displayed on a silk cloth across an antique table, each piece catching the morning light that streamed through the tall windows. When Harry entered and saw his mother's sapphire earrings, the same ones she had worn to his graduation from Eton, his composure completely shattered. The brothers stood together in silence, both transported back to their childhood memories of watching Diana prepare for royal engagements. They remembered hiding behind curtains to watch her get ready, fascinated by how the jewelry transformed their mother, from the woman who read them bedtime stories into the glamorous princess the world adored. These weren't just precious stones and metals. They were pieces of their mother that they thought had been lost forever. Catherine had deliberately stayed away from this reunion, understanding that the brothers needed this private moment together. She watched from a distance as William and Harry examined each piece, sharing memories and stories about when they had seen their mother wear them. For a brief moment, it seemed as though the years of tension and hurt between them had melted away. Meanwhile, across London at Clarence House, Camilla was struggling with the news. She had built her life around supporting Charles and finding her place in the royal family, but Diana's enduring presence had always been a challenge. The queen consort had worked hard to win public acceptance, and she feared that the reappearance of Diana's jewelry would reignite painful comparisons and renew public fascination with her predecessor. Camilla called her closest friend, Annabel, seeking comfort and advice. She confided her fears about what this discovery might mean for her position and how the public would react. The jewelry's return felt like Diana was reaching out from beyond the grave, reminding everyone of the complicated history that had shaped the royal family. Camilla worried that all her efforts to establish herself might be overshadowed once again by Diana's enduring legacy. Back at Kensington Palace, the brothers were making difficult decisions about the jewelry's future. Each piece carried specific memories and emotional significance that made dividing them challenging. William felt strongly that Catherine should have first choice of what she wanted to wear, believing that Diana would have wanted her daughter-in-law to have access to her collection. Harry agreed, but also expressed his hope that some pieces might eventually go to his own daughter, Lilibet, when she was older. The pearl necklace became a particular point of discussion. Diana had worn it to Harry's christening, and the brothers both had strong emotional connections to it. They remembered their mother telling them stories about how the pearls were a gift from her own grandmother, making the necklace a link to several generations of strong women in their family. Eventually, they decided that Catherine should wear it first, with the understanding that it would eventually pass to the next generation of royal women. Palace staff watched nervously as news of Harry's surprise visit began to leak to the press. Royal protection officers had to manage increased security measures as photographers gathered outside the palace gates, hoping to catch a glimpse of the estranged brothers together. The palace press office worked frantically to control the narrative, knowing that any story involving William, Harry, and Diana's memory would dominate headlines worldwide. The king was informed of his son's meeting during his morning briefing at Buckingham Palace. Charles felt a complex mixture of emotions, relief that his sons were talking, but also concern about how the jewelry's discovery might affect the carefully maintained stability he had worked to establish. He instructed his private secretary to monitor the situation closely and to offer any support the brothers might need. As afternoon approached, Catherine finally joined William and Harry in the drawing room. She had been anxious about this moment, unsure how Harry would react to seeing her with his mother's jewelry. To her relief, Harry embraced her warmly and told her how much Diana would have loved her. He said that seeing Catherine wear their mother's jewelry would be a comfort, not a painful reminder, because it meant Diana's treasures would continue to be loved and appreciated. The trio spent hours going through each piece, with the brothers sharing stories about their mother that Catherine had never heard before. They told her about Diana's habit of letting them play with her jewelry box when they were sick, how she would let them choose which earrings she should wear to their school events. These intimate details painted a picture of Diana as a devoted mother, not just the global icon the world remembered. Harry stayed for dinner, the first family meal the brothers had shared in over a year. The conversation was careful but warm, focused on their children and positive memories rather than the disagreements that had driven them apart. Catherine served Diana's favorite dessert, lemon posset, which she had learned to make from the palace chef who remembered the princess's preferences. As evening fell, difficult questions arose about what to tell the public about the jewelry's discovery. The brothers knew that any announcement would generate massive media attention and speculation about their relationship. They agreed that the focus should remain on celebrating their mother's memory rather than on their personal reconciliation, but they also understood that the public would read significance into their cooperation. Harry's security team began making arrangements for his return to California the following day, but both brothers were reluctant to end this unexpected reunion. They made tentative plans to speak more regularly, using their shared commitment to honoring Diana's legacy as a bridge to rebuild their relationship. The jewelry had given them a reason to put aside their differences, at least temporarily. Camilla received updates throughout the day about the brothers' meeting, and her anxiety grew with each report. She understood that she couldn't compete with Diana's memory, but she worried about how the renewed focus on the late princess would affect her own role and public perception. The queen consort began planning how to gracefully handle the inevitable media storm while maintaining her dignity and position within the family as the palace prepared for another night of keeping royal secrets. Everyone understood that the jewelry's discovery had changed something fundamental in the family dynamics. The lost treasures had brought the brothers together, but they had also awakened sleeping emotions and memories that would have lasting consequences for everyone involved. 3 days after Harry's departure, the palace faced its first crisis related to the jewelry discovery. A former palace staff member had leaked details to a prominent royal correspondent, and by morning, headlines screamed about Diana's lost treasures found across every British newspaper. The carefully planned announcement that the royal communications team had been crafting was suddenly irrelevant as the story spiraled beyond their control. William's reaction to the media explosion was swift and decisive. He immediately called an emergency meeting with his private secretary and the palace communications director. The prince was furious that such a deeply personal family matter had been exposed before they were ready to share it publicly. He demanded a full investigation into how the information had leaked and insisted on taking control of the narrative. Before it became even more distorted, Catherine found herself thrust into an uncomfortable spotlight as photographers camped outside every entrance to Kensington Palace. Royal protection officers had to escort her children to school through back entrances, and their normal family routines were completely disrupted. The princess felt the weight of carrying Diana's legacy, knowing that every public appearance would now be scrutinized for signs of her wearing the recovered jewelry. The media frenzy reached Camilla within hours of the first headlines appearing. Sitting in her private study at Clarence's house, she read article after article that painted the jewelry discovery as a romantic fairy tale, with Catherine cast as the worthy successor to Diana's crown jewels. The coverage stung deeply as it seemed to diminish everything Camilla had achieved in her years as queen consort. Social media comments were particularly harsh, with users calling for Catherine to wear Diana's jewelry exclusively and suggesting that Camilla step back from public life. The king found himself in an impossible position as head of the family. Charles understood Camilla's pain, but he also recognized the genuine joy that the jewelry's return had brought to his sons. During a private lunch, he tried to comfort his wife, while also defending William and Catherine's right to celebrate the discovery. The conversation became heated when Camilla suggested that the jewelry should be locked away in the royal vault, rather than worn publicly, feeling that its display would only invite unfavorable comparisons. Harry watched the media coverage from his home in California with growing frustration. The press had completely misrepresented his visit to London, turning it into a story about royal reconciliation rather than focusing on the emotional significance of recovering their mother's belongings. He was particularly angry about suggestions that he had given up his claim to the jewelry, when in reality the brothers had made careful, thoughtful decisions together about each piece. The public reaction was overwhelmingly positive, with thousands of messages flooding the palace's social media accounts from people sharing their own memories of Diana wearing the jewelry. Many remembered specific royal engagements where she had worn the sapphire earrings or pearl necklace, and the outpouring of affection reminded everyone of how deeply the princess had touched people's lives. However, this public celebration only intensified Camilla's feelings of being overshadowed. Catherine made her first public appearance since the discovery at a children's charity event, deliberately choosing not to wear any of Diana's recovered jewelry. She wanted to be thoughtful about how and when to debut the pieces, understanding that each appearance would carry enormous symbolic weight. The princess was surprised by how many people in the crowd asked specifically about the jewelry, and she realized that the public felt a genuine connection to these royal heirlooms. Behind palace walls, tensions were rising between different factions of the royal household. Staff members who had served Diana felt emotional about the jewelry's return and were protective of her memory. Meanwhile, those loyal to Camilla worried about how the queen consort was being affected by the renewed focus on her predecessor. The divide created an uncomfortable atmosphere in royal residences across London. William decided to address the situation directly by authorizing his first official statement about the jewelry discovery. Working with his communications team, he crafted a message that honored his mother's memory while also acknowledging Camilla's important role in the family. The statement emphasized that the jewelry's return was about preserving family heritage, rather than making any political statements about royal succession or favoritism. The statement read, "The recovery of these precious items belonging to my mother has brought immense joy to my family. Each piece carries treasured memories of a remarkable woman who loved her sons unconditionally. We are grateful for the public's continued affection for my mother's memory, and look forward to ensuring these heirlooms are preserved for future generations." However, even this carefully worded statement couldn't calm the storm that was brewing within the family. Camilla felt that William's focus on preserving his mother's legacy was an implicit criticism of her own contributions to the royal family. She began to withdraw from some of her royal engagements, claiming to feel unwell, which only fueled more speculation in the press about tensions behind palace doors. The situation became more complicated when several royal biographers began reaching out to former palace staff, hoping to gather more details about the jewelry's disappearance and recovery. These inquiries threatened to uncover other family secrets and reopened old wounds about the period following Diana's death. The palace legal team had to work overtime, sending cease and desist letters to prevent unauthorized publications. Catherine tried to serve as a peacemaker between William and his father, understanding that the family needed to present a united front, despite their private disagreements. She suggested a family dinner where they could discuss how to handle the jewelry situation together, but Camilla declined the invitation, saying she needed more time to process her feelings about the discovery. The children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, became curious about the media attention surrounding their grandmother's jewelry. Catherine and William had to explain carefully about Diana's importance to the family and the country, while also helping them understand why the jewelry discovery had created such public interest. Charlotte was particularly fascinated by the idea of wearing her grandmother's pearls when she was older. International media picked up the story, with news outlets around the world running features about Diana's enduring influence on the royal family. The coverage reminded everyone of her global impact and humanitarian work, which created additional pressure on the current royal family to live up to her legacy. This international attention made it impossible for the palace to contain or control the narrative. As the first week after the leak concluded, it became clear that the jewelry discovery had fundamentally changed the royal family's dynamics. The pieces that were meant to bring joy and connection to Diana's memory had instead created new tensions and rivalries. William realized that managing the situation would require more than just careful public relations. It would need genuine family healing and honest conversations about everyone's feelings and fears. The recovered jewelry sat in the royal vault, beautiful but now controversial, waiting for decisions that would determine not just who would wear them, but whether they would become symbols of unity or division within the House of Windsor. 2 weeks after the media storm began, William made a decision that would shock everyone in the royal family. He arranged a private meeting with Camilla at Clarence House, arriving unannounced on a rainy Thursday morning. The Queen Consort was surprised to find her stepson at her door, especially since their relationship had always been cordial but distant. William's expression was serious as he asked if they could speak privately about the jewelry situation. Camilla led him to her private sitting room, the same space where she had spent countless hours worrying about the implications of Diana's recovered treasures. William began by acknowledging how difficult the past few weeks had been for her, and his unexpected empathy caught Camilla off guard. She had prepared herself for confrontation, but instead found herself facing a young man who seemed genuinely concerned about her feelings. William explained that he had been thinking deeply about his mother's legacy and what she would have wanted for the family. He told Camilla that Diana had always hoped for peace and happiness within the royal household, and that she would be heartbroken to know that her jewelry had caused pain for anyone. His words were carefully chosen, showing a maturity that reminded Camilla of his father at that age. The conversation took an unexpected turn when William offered Camilla first choice of one piece from Diana's recovered collection. He explained that while the jewelry held deep sentimental value for him and Harry, he also recognized Camilla's important role in their family and wanted to honor that relationship. The gesture was unprecedented and caught Camilla completely unprepared. Camilla's initial reaction was to refuse the offer entirely. She felt that accepting any of Diana's jewelry would be inappropriate and might be seen as disrespectful to the late princess's memory. However, William persisted, explaining that his mother had always believed in forgiveness and moving forward. He told Camilla that wearing one of Diana's pieces would actually be a symbol of family unity rather than division. As they talked, Camilla found herself sharing her deepest fears about living in Diana's shadow. She admitted to William that she had always felt judged against his mother's memory and worried that she could never measure up to the public's idealized image of the late princess. Her vulnerability surprised William, who had never seen this fragile side of his stepmother before. William listened patiently as Camilla described the loneliness of her position and the constant pressure she felt to prove herself worthy of the royal family's acceptance. She spoke about the cruel comments she received on social media and how the jewelry's discovery had reopened old wounds about her role in his parents' marriage. Her honesty created an unexpected bond between them. The turning point in their conversation came when William shared a memory of his mother talking about forgiveness during one of their last conversations before her death. Diana had told him that holding on to anger and resentment only hurt yourself in the end, and that true strength came from choosing love over bitterness. William said he believed his mother would want Camilla to feel welcomed and valued in the family. After much discussion, Camilla finally agreed to accept one piece of jewelry, but only under specific conditions. She wanted the choice to be made privately, without any public announcement or fanfare. She also insisted that if she ever felt uncomfortable wearing the piece, she could return it to William without question. The careful negotiation showed how much thought both of them were putting into this delicate situation. Camilla chose Diana's pearl bracelet, a relatively simple piece that had been photographed less frequently than the more famous items. She felt that pearls were classic and timeless, and the bracelet could be worn alongside her own jewelry without drawing too much attention. William was moved by her thoughtful choice and the respect she showed for his mother's memory. News of William's visit to Clarence House quickly reached other family members through the palace's internal communication network. Catherine was initially surprised by her husband's decision to meet with Camilla privately, but after he explained his reasoning, she supported his choice completely. She understood that healing the family would require generous gestures from everyone involved. Charles was deeply moved when he learned about his son's offer to Camilla and her decision to accept the pearl bracelet. The king had been worried about the tensions within the family, and William's mature handling of the situation gave him hope that they could find a way forward together. He called William that evening to express his pride and gratitude for the thoughtful gesture. Harry learned about the development through a carefully worded text message from William. His initial reaction was surprise, but after thinking about it, he realized that their mother would indeed have approved of including Camilla in the jewelry distribution. Harry sent back a supportive message, saying that Diana had always believed in bringing people together rather than driving them apart. The palace staff was buzzing with discussion about the unprecedented nature of William's gesture. Many of the older servants who had worked for Diana were initially shocked, but as they considered the implications, most agreed that it showed remarkable wisdom and generosity. They remembered how Diana had always tried to heal family rifts and bring people together during difficult times. Camilla's first appearance wearing Diana's pearl bracelet came at a small charity luncheon 2 days after her meeting with William. She wore it alongside her own sapphire engagement ring and a simple navy dress, creating an elegant but understated look. Only the most observant royal watchers noticed the new addition to her jewelry collection, which was exactly what Camilla had hoped for. The subtle debut of the bracelet sent a powerful message about family unity, without creating the media spectacle that everyone had feared. Royal correspondents who noticed the bracelet praised it as a sign of healing within the family, while critics found it difficult to object to such a thoughtful and respectful gesture. The positive reception gave Camilla confidence about her decision to accept William's offer. Catherine made her own statement about family unity by choosing to wear Diana's sapphire earrings to her next official engagement. She paired them with a blue dress that complemented the stones perfectly, and the photographs were stunning. The princess's graceful way of honoring Diana while also supporting the current family structure was widely praised in the media. The children were told about the jewelry sharing in age-appropriate terms, with Charlotte being particularly pleased that Granny Camilla would also have something beautiful that belonged to their other grandmother. The innocence of their reactions reminded the adults that family love and acceptance should be simple concepts, not complicated political calculations. As the month progressed, it became clear that William's bold gesture had successfully diffused much of the tension surrounding the jewelry discovery. By including Camilla in the distribution of Diana's treasures, he had demonstrated that the royal family could honor the past while also embracing the present. The decision showed a level of emotional intelligence and leadership that surprised many observers. The recovered jewelry was no longer seen as a source of division but rather as an opportunity for healing and growth within the royal family. Each piece now carried new meaning about forgiveness, acceptance, and the power of generous gestures to transform difficult situations into opportunities for deeper understanding and love. The transformation in family dynamics became most apparent during the annual Trooping the Color ceremony 6 weeks later. For the first time in years, there was a genuine sense of unity among the royal family members as they prepared for the public celebration. Catherine wore Diana's sapphire earrings with a powder blue coat dress, while Camilla subtly displayed the pearl bracelet alongside her traditional brooch collection. The coordination wasn't planned, but it sent a powerful visual message about family harmony. Behind the scenes at Buckingham Palace, the preparation for Trooping the Color revealed how much the jewelry discovery had changed relationships within the family. Catherine and Camilla found themselves having longer conversations about jewelry choices and coordinating their appearances. These discussions led to deeper conversations about their shared experiences of marrying into the royal family and the unique pressures they both faced. Camilla surprised Catherine by sharing stories about her early years as a royal, including the loneliness and criticism she had endured. The queen consort admitted that she had always felt intimidated by Catherine's natural grace and public popularity, fearing that comparisons between them would always favor the younger woman. Catherine was touched by this vulnerability and reassured Camilla that she had always admired her strength and dedication to royal duty. The public balcony appearance during Trooping the Color became a defining moment for the renewed royal family unity. When Camilla appeared wearing Diana's pearl bracelet alongside her own jewelry, the crowd's reaction was notably positive. Royal watchers later commented that the gesture showed remarkable confidence and respect, transforming what could have been a controversial choice into a symbol of family acceptance and growth. William's decision to include Camilla in Diana's jewelry legacy had unexpected ripple effects throughout the extended royal family. Princess Anne approached him privately to express her admiration for his handling of the situation, telling him that his mother would have been proud of his maturity and wisdom. The Princess Royal had always been direct in her opinions, so her approval carried significant weight within the family hierarchy. The success of the jewelry integration encouraged other healing gestures within the family. Charles began including more personal touches in his public speeches about Diana, speaking warmly about her role as a devoted mother, rather than focusing only on her charitable work. These references helped the public understand that Diana's memory was celebrated rather than avoided within the current royal household. Harry called William after seeing photographs from Trooping the Color, expressing his amazement at how well the jewelry situation had been resolved. The brothers' conversation lasted over an hour, covering topics from their children's development to potential future visits. The jewelry had given them a bridge back to each other, and they were both committed to rebuilding their relationship gradually and carefully. The media response to the family's handling of Diana's jewelry became overwhelmingly positive as the weeks passed. Royal correspondents praised William's emotional intelligence and leadership, while fashion magazines celebrated how elegantly Catherine and Camilla had integrated the pieces into their respective styles. The story became a rare example of royal family news that generated positive coverage across all types of media. Catherine found that wearing Diana's jewelry brought unexpected comfort and connection to her role as Princess of Wales. The sapphire earrings made her feel more confident during difficult public engagements, as if Diana's strength and compassion were somehow supporting her through challenging moments. She began to understand why these pieces had been so important to William and Harry's emotional connection to their mother. The children's reactions to seeing their mother and grandmother wearing the recovered jewelry provided some of the most touching moments in the entire story. Charlotte was fascinated by the idea that jewelry could carry family history and asked detailed questions about her grandmother Diana's life and personality. George and Louis were less interested in the jewelry itself, but enjoyed hearing stories about their father's childhood and their grandmother's kindness. Camilla's confidence in wearing Diana's pearl bracelet grew with each public appearance. She began to see the piece not as a burden or reminder of inadequacy, but as a symbol of her acceptance into the family's deepest traditions. The bracelet became her favorite piece of jewelry, and she found herself touching it during difficult moments as a source of strength and belonging. The palace's approach to managing the jewelry story became a case study in successful royal communications. By focusing on family unity and respect for Diana's memory, rather than trying to control every aspect of the narrative, they had allowed the story to develop naturally into something positive and healing. The approach marked a significant evolution in how the royal family handled sensitive personal matters in the public eye. 6 months after the jewelry's discovery, William reflected on how much had changed within his family. The pieces that had once been sources of sadness and loss had become bridges connecting different generations and different personalities within the royal household. He realized that his mother's greatest gift wasn't the jewelry itself, but the opportunity it had created for forgiveness, understanding, and growth. The success of integrating Diana's jewelry into the family's public life led to discussions about other ways to honor her memory while moving forward as a united family. Plans were developed for a small exhibition of Diana's charitable work, featuring some of her personal items including pieces of the recovered jewelry. The exhibition would travel to various locations where Diana had done her humanitarian work, continuing her legacy of service and compassion. Catherine and Camilla's growing friendship became one of the unexpected benefits of the jewelry situation. The two women discovered that they shared many interests beyond their royal duties, including gardening, literature, and concern for their children's well-being. Their public appearances together became more natural and relaxed, showing genuine affection rather than dutiful cooperation. The pearl bracelet that Camilla wore became a symbol of the royal family's ability to heal old wounds and create new traditions. Royal historians noted that the gesture would likely be remembered as a turning point in the family's modern history, demonstrating that love and acceptance could overcome even the most difficult circumstances. As the first anniversary of the jewelry's discovery approached, the royal family had transformed a potentially divisive situation into a source of strength and unity. The lost treasures of Diana had been found not just in a forgotten palace storage room, but in the hearts of family members who had chosen love over resentment, understanding over judgment, and hope over fear. 1 year after the discovery of Diana's lost jewelry, the royal family gathered at Kensington Palace for a private ceremony that would have been unimaginable just months earlier. William had proposed creating a small memorial garden in honor of his mother, where a selection of her recovered jewelry would be permanently displayed in a specially designed exhibition space. The idea had grown from a simple family tribute into a lasting memorial that would allow the public to connect with Diana's memory while supporting the causes she had championed. Memorial Garden was designed by the same landscape architect who had created the memorial playground for Diana, ensuring continuity with previous tributes to the late princess. The exhibition space was elegant but intimate, featuring glass cases that displayed rotating selections of Diana's jewelry, alongside photographs of her wearing the pieces during her charitable work. The design allowed visitors to see the jewelry not as mere precious objects, but as tools Diana had used to draw attention to important causes and connect with people around the world. Camilla's role in the memorial's development surprised everyone, including herself. She had volunteered to help with the planning, using her experience with charitable organizations to ensure the memorial would have lasting impact beyond its symbolic value. The Queen Consort worked particularly hard on developing educational programs that would teach young visitors about Diana's humanitarian legacy and encourage them to find their own ways to help others. The private opening ceremony brought together family members who hadn't been in the same room for years. Harry had flown in from California with Meghan and their children, marking their first joint family appearance since the jewelry discovery had begun healing old wounds. The grandchildren, George, Charlotte, Louis, Archie, and Lilibet, played together in the garden while the adults shared memories and celebrated what they had built together. Catherine delivered the keynote address at the opening ceremony, speaking eloquently about how Diana's jewelry had taught the family important lessons about forgiveness, acceptance, and the power of generous gestures to heal old wounds. She wore Diana's complete sapphire set for the occasion, earrings, necklace, and bracelet, looking radiant as she honored the woman whose legacy had shaped so much of her own royal journey. The most emotional moment of the ceremony came when William and Harry jointly unveiled the centerpiece of the exhibition, a display featuring their mother's engagement ring alongside a new piece that had been commissioned using stones from several of her bracelets. The new piece was a pendant designed to be worn by future generations of royal women, ensuring that Diana's jewelry would continue to serve and inspire long after the current generation was gone. Camilla's speech at the ceremony focused on the lessons she had learned about family, acceptance, and the importance of honoring the past while building for the future. She spoke about how wearing Diana's pearl bracelet had helped her understand that love wasn't diminished by sharing it, but actually grew stronger when it was passed between generations. Her words brought tears to many eyes and demonstrated how much she had grown in her understanding of her role within the family. The public opening of the memorial drew thousands of visitors in its first week, with many people commenting on how moving it was to see Diana's jewelry displayed alongside stories of her charitable work. The exhibition's guest book filled quickly with messages from visitors who shared their own memories of the princess and expressed gratitude for the family's decision to share these precious items with the world. The success of the memorial led to unexpected opportunities for the royal family to work together on other projects. William and Harry began collaborating on a documentary about their mother's life, using the jewelry as a starting point to explore her personality, passions, and lasting impact. The project gave them regular reasons to communicate and slowly rebuild their relationship while honoring their shared commitment to preserving their mother's legacy. Catherine found that her role as Princess of Wales had been transformed by her connection to Diana's jewelry and memory. She felt more confident in her public appearances and more certain about her charitable priorities, as if wearing Diana's pieces had given her access to the late princess's strength and compassion. The jewelry had become a source of inspiration rather than pressure, helping her define her own unique contribution to royal service. The children's understanding of their grandmother Diana deepened through regular visits to the memorial garden. Charlotte was particularly drawn to the stories about Diana's work with children and began asking if she could help with similar charitable activities when she was older. George and Louis enjoyed hearing tales of their father's and uncle's childhood, while Archie and Lilibet were fascinated by the sparkling jewelry and the beautiful garden setting. Camilla's transformation was perhaps the most remarkable outcome of the entire jewelry saga. The woman who had once felt threatened by Diana's memory had become one of the most passionate advocates for preserving and sharing the late princess's legacy. She regularly led tours of the memorial for special visitors and had developed a genuine expertise in Diana's charitable work and humanitarian philosophy. The annual memorial service that the family established drew attendees from around the world, including many of the charities and organizations that Diana had supported during her lifetime. The event became a celebration of service and compassion, with the jewelry serving as beautiful but secondary elements in a larger story about the power of one person's dedication to helping others. As the second anniversary of the jewelry's discovery approached, William reflected on how completely the situation had been transformed. What had begun as a painful reminder of loss had become a source of healing, unity, and renewed purpose for his entire family. The lost jewels of Diana had indeed resurfaced, but their greatest value wasn't monetary. It was their ability to bring out the best in everyone who encountered them. The royal family's handling of Diana's recovered jewelry became a model for how institutions could honor their history while adapting to modern circumstances. By choosing inclusion over exclusion, generosity over possessiveness, and healing over resentment, they had created something beautiful from what could have been a source of lasting division. The jewelry itself continued to serve its highest purpose, not as symbols of wealth or status, but as reminders of love, service, and the enduring power of one remarkable woman's legacy to inspire positive change in the world. Diana's greatest treasures had never really been lost. They had simply been waiting for the right moment to bring her family together and help them understand that her most valuable gifts were the lessons she had taught them about compassion, forgiveness, and the importance of putting love first in all their relationships. In the end, Prince William's reaction to finding his mother's lost jewelry had indeed stunned Camilla. Not because it was harsh or exclusionary, but because it was so generous and wise that it transformed her understanding of what family could mean. The recovered jewels had given them all something precious, a second chance to honor the past while building a better future together.